Welcome to postseason baseball. The Chicago White Sox begin their march to the World Series. Here to recap the big moments and analyzing the critical decisions is your favorite source of Chicago White Sox talk. This is the Sox Machine postseason show with your hosts, Jim Margulis and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to Sox Machine Live. I am Josh Nelson, alongside the managing editor of SoxMachine.com. It's Jim Margulis, and we are streaming live on our YouTube page at youtube.com/SoxMachine after Game 2 of the American League Division Series against the Houston Astros, as the Astros win Game 2 9-4. And even though the final score resembles a blowout, there were a couple of opportunities for the White Sox to steal Game 2 from the Astros and go back home, tied up one game apiece. But instead, the Chicago White Sox, with their much looked forward to blackout game, hoping that it's not a funeral setting, as they are down 2-0 and they're going to have to win the next 3 games of this 5-game series to keep their season alive. And Jim, I don't have a good place to start, but reading your recap on SoxMachine.com, I think you summed it up well. The White Sox were outplayed, they were outmanaged, they were out everything. And it's looking, honestly, it's just looking like Houston is better than the White Sox in almost every facet.
Yeah, it's tough. It's the issue, yeah, I think with the White Sox being unpolished, when it comes to like their plate discipline being sometimes out of control, and with their tendency to hit balls in the ground, like they're not formidable the way the Astros lineup is. So they have to be really good. They have to really be really good on the margins. They have to take advantage of the innings they're able to cobble together. And this one was winnable. You can't count on winning a game with 4 runs, but you should be able to once in a while, especially in the postseason, like that's required. And they had a 4-2 lead. They had the first 4 innings done, covered. Like Lucas Giolito got through them better than Lance Lynn got through his 4 innings, or 3 2/3 innings. So they were in, by postseason standards, okay shape. Like not ideal, but a lot is not going to be ideal in October against really good teams. And even if they were playing like the Rays, who look like they could be the other American League team in the ALCS, like they would have to win games like this, kind of scratch and claw and figure it out. And just a lot went wrong, and a lot, both mistakes made on the field, mistakes made in the dugout. I would say like game 1, let's go back to game 1, I think, real quick. When it came to like Lance Lynn pitching to Michael Brantley and trying to manage a 3-run deficit versus a 5-run deficit it turned into, that's a case where I don't really blame Tony La Russa, because it's game 1 of a series. You're going to have to try to, they don't have a lot of experience in stitching together 6 innings of bullpen work. And it might have been in a losing cause anyway. So I wasn't inclined to really slam them too hard for that. But the lessons taken away in that game about the third time through, especially third time through for a pitcher who isn't doing that well, that's when you say, like, okay, we learned what happened in game 1. Now you need to make sure that doesn't happen in game 2. Because now they lost the game. They were expected to lose. They could learn things along the way. Great. They didn't tax anybody, maybe in a losing effort. Fine. But when it came to a 4-2 lead and then having those lessons pretty freshly imprinted on everybody's memory, that makes Tony La Russa's job way more important, way more proactive. Now it's about nursing a lead, not managing a deficit that might get out of hand anyway. And he got it off on a bad foot by having Lucas Giolito face 3 batters in a 5th inning that he probably shouldn't even started. And it kind of all slipped away from there.
Yeah, the 5th inning, at the top of the 5th inning, what I put in my notes was the top of the 5th inning maybe saved the White Sox season. As a big turning point in the postseason, they scored 3 runs at the top of the 5th inning, scratching and clawing. They have a 2-run lead on the Houston Astros. This could be the turning point of the series. Bottom of the 5th inning ended up being the turning point of the series, because Giolito walks 2 guys. Those guys score because Russa is going to Garrett Crochet in these tight spots. And I'm sure he's doing this because this is some Ned Yost managing of, well, Aaron Bummer's my 7th inning guy. I can't use him in the 5th inning. I got to use him in the 7th inning, which is galaxy brain. And of course, that's a tough spot for Garrett Crochet. And Crochet hasn't exactly proven that he can get out of those jams with any consistency. Mm-hmm. And of course, he allows a single to Kyle Tucker as the White Sox were playing a shift against Tucker, and Tucker squeezes one through the left side of the infield, in which, if the White Sox are playing double play defense, that's probably a double play. And we saw a lot of defensive alignment that is, I don't know, it's part like all over the place and in no place to make a play. And that was also part of the frustrating thing, is that you're just watching the Houston Astros hit these grounders that go right up the middle of the infield, and nobody, not Tim Anderson, not Luis Garcia, not even Cesar Hernandez when he joins the game, they're not even close to making those plays. Then when White Sox hitters are hitting the same type of ground ball, you're watching Jose Altuve make all of the plays. And the White Sox are grounding into outs instead of hitting singles. And then you're watching the Astros hit singles, and then they take the lead. And then Kyle Tucker hits the home run against Craig Kimbrell. And the post-game comments are not making things any better at all for La Russa. And boy, this is definitely a top 5 loss of the season for the White Sox, for just on how things unraveled so quickly. And this comes after a point that there was a high. Yes, the White Sox got some momentum. They have a 2-run lead in Houston. We're halfway done in the game. If he goes to Kopech, if the bullpen bridge holds up and they could get to Hendricks, they could steal this, and it's knotted up and the White Sox have home field advantage. Instead, we're talking about the White Sox have to win 3 in a row, and if they do win the 2 home games, their reward is facing Lance McCullers in Houston again.
Yeah, I think with Crochet, I think we saw Bummer's inning and Bummer having a very Bummer inning. I think I don't so much see that as a problem going to Crochet in the 5th. My problem is having Crochet come in with runners on, having somebody else's problem to inherit. Maybe that's a case where I do go for Bummer over Crochet, but nobody was even warming. When Giolito started the inning.
Robin Ventura BS. We have been podcasting for 8 seasons, and we have spent days of our life, Jim, complaining about Robin Ventura not managing the bullpen, not having guys ready, and then just being caught completely off guard. And then his post-game conference saying, well, it's one of those things. And here La Russa makes a Robin Ventura mistake by not having anyone warmed up in the 5th inning. Are you watching the same game as everybody else is watching? Because, and this is not the first time that Giolito has looked gas and La Russa thought there was more left in the tank this season. So he makes that mistake again in 2021. Not having anyone warmed up in the bullpen. Come on, man.
Yeah, that's to me the biggest issue and made me worried because I could see, the whole first sign of trouble thing. That's a typical manager thing. That's not La Russa specific. But having seen, Framber of ALDS, the White Sox got to him. Dusty Baker got him the hell out of there, basically, as soon as, he could reasonably expect, because Valdez was cruising until he wasn't. Giolito he cruised in the 1st and then never after. And so there wasn't the kind of, manager trap that sometimes they fall into where they say, they don't want to warm somebody up when a guy is cruising because that sends the wrong message. It's a distraction. That's a not showing faith. I get that as a human level, even if that maybe doesn't come into play. But just having nobody there when Giolito was already laboring, as you're showing the box score right now, 5 walks over 4 1/3 innings. And then you have a rookie come in who didn't really even have a college season, didn't have a minor league season, pitched in front of no crowds last year. Is now facing a postseason crowd that's going nuts with 2 runners who aren't his on the base, to where he's not throwing a slider with conviction at all. And he's just throwing fastballs. And then Gurriel smashes one through the middle to tie the game. That's just a case where it's, it doesn't, we heard about La Russa being great at putting guys in position to succeed. That wasn't it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been told the nepotism, the drunk driving, all the drama about his hiring, it'll be worth it because you'll want Tony on the bench when the game is on the line come October.
That's what Jared Reinsdorf said. He, and when finally making comments to the public because they won the division, he could say it worked. He could come out and say, of course I knew it was going to work. And he's going to be our guy in October because he knows how to handle pitchers. And so now that this happened, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the series, but we're not going to hear from Reinsdorf afterwards when his vision did not materialize because he would be wrong, or at least, he guessed wrong. I mean, it's a case where like we saw Renteria, kind of look in over his head last year.
Yes.
And a lot of managers do. It's like, that's not a Tony La Russa specific problem, but when you go out of your way to hire him, and then when you take a victory lap after this, regular season saying this is why I hired him, it does raise standards. It does raise expectations for something like this happening. And in the case where, like, say Crochet comes in, starts the fifth and gets in the same amount of trouble, yeah, maybe you can second guess and say, well, Crochet pitched yesterday. It should have been Kopech. But like, he just, it's not they didn't push the wrong buttons. He didn't push any buttons. And that's, I think, where, the Hall of Famer baseball person, like, where was that guy? And yeah, so on and so forth.
And there's a lot of people after the game asking, where's Michael Kopech?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you have this great weapon that you can use, why haven't you used them? And in his post-game conference, Tony La Russa said that if we were in a position to win, we would have used Kopech.
I didn't see that quote. I could have done a spit take.
my brain wants to melt and pour out of my ear because you were winning in the fifth inning, Tony. You were winning at the halfway point of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was asked about Kimbrel, and La Russa said Kimbrel is a closer at heart. That is not the role that he's been meant to pitch in. So here we are now after game 2, and we're back to this conversation when Kimbrel struggled after the White Sox acquired him. Should he be pitching the ninth inning because he only feels comfortable pitching in a save situation? And the season is on the line. The next loss ends the White Sox season. It's really hard to feel good about this team. And Tim Anderson, I give him a lot of credit. In his post-game conference, he's still trying to remain upbeat. He is still beating the drum. Hey, the season's not over. We've won 3 games in a row before. We could do it again. And he is still, pouring out that confidence. We're not dead yet. But after watching this game, and we first guessed Tony's decision in the 5th inning, it blew up on him, and his post-game comments, I don't know if he's going to learn on Saturday. And honestly, there's just not enough time for Tony La Russa to learn. The White Sox are now going to have to play at a level of baseball that Tony La Russa cannot be a factor in the game. And the only way you can do that is if your offense plays some tremendous baseball and they put up a bunch of runs on the Houston Astros early, and you get either Carlos Rodon or Dylan Cease to pitch really well and keep posting up zeros, and you're up 5 or 6 runs in the 5th inning instead of 2.
Yeah, we got a comment from Ray saying that the direct quote was, if we were in a position to need Kopech to win, which... yeah, it's a case where, I'm guessing he wants to save Kopech to work with Rodon, and the way he's talking about Rodon and talking around the game 3 starter, seems to be a lot of not as much trust in Dylan Cease as he thinks Cease might have earned with the way he finished the season, like the way he wrapped up. And it seems like you can't win a World Series without Dylan Cease pitching. Yeah, no, I would say pitching at all. So, and then pitching, relatively well. I mean, they might lose, theoretically, if they somehow got to the World Series, and this is a very theoretical discussion at this point. But you would need Cease making starts, and if they lose the starts he makes, okay, but at least you need him filling those days. So to, be be talking about avoiding him when Rodon has looked iffy and near. And in order to have Rodon, you need to take away resources that help you win a game too. That's what is really, over the next 2 games, like they're going to need Tony La Russa to manage his ass off. Like that's the case where now it's not simple. Now it's Rodon for 3, Kopech for 3. What do you do if you're lucky? That's if that's Rodon for 1, Kopech for 3, like or Kopech for 2, everybody for an inning. It could be a whole bunch of things. It's going to take a lot of desperation, and that's where the White Sox are now. So it's you're needing Tony La Russa more than ever in a game where he might have had his worst game of the season. Just when you factor in, the slow hook, the relief choices made, and then also the swap of Larry Garcia for Cesar Hernandez for Adam Engel. And I don't know if you saw any quotes about that. I did not yet. I'll have to keep an eye out to see if it came up. But just that happening, there was a lot that went wrong in a lot of different facets. And also as you mentioned, the defensive alignment too was like just off. Like we've seen bummer innings go bad, but usually it's just like out, the ball just bounces underneath Tim Anderson's, the extent of his reach, or, a second baseman is sliding to the hole up the middle and can't get a clean handle on it as he tries to make an exchange. Like we see usually those kind of plays that stress the infielders past their breaking points, but the infielders, as you mentioned, like they weren't in the camera. they weren't there. And is that a matter of information, or is that just the Astros having good swings and being really hard to shift against? That's, I think, a debate to have, but just all this stuff that helps supplement what the players are doing on the field was not there. And now you're going to need a whole lot more of that in order to survive.
And again, the way that they can overcome this, because I just don't have a lot of confidence that in the next 48 hours, things are going to magically be better and the White Sox are going to magically be managed better and be better prepared from the coaching staff for the game, is that offensively, they're just going to have to come out and have some big hits. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about here on this episode of Sox Machine Live. Where's the power? Mm-hmm. Lots of singles. Okay, that's fine. That's good. No doubles, no triples, no home runs. And I cannot stress this enough. The teams that are out homering their opponents this postseason are undefeated. They have won every game. Last year, they were 35-5. That's an .875 winning percentage. If the White Sox offense does not hit for power at home, this season is ending at home. That cannot be said any simpler. So, Jim, any idea where the power went?
Well, part of the power ended up in the Astros' gloves. I mean, we talk about defensive alignment, just whether it's, Kyle Tucker flagging down Yasmani Grandal's 102-mile-per-hour drive to right field, or a triple-digit line drive going right to Alex Bregman, who's standing right over third base, or Moncada's smash getting flagged down by Gurriel, who was he was holding a runner on, and so he was there. That's part of it is bad luck. That doesn't answer all of it, but just, and then I think there's other stuff like defensive alignment where outfielders are where they need to be to not let balls get through the gap. Like they're hitting into shifts, and they're either hitting into shifts or they're hitting close enough to the spray charts to where damage is minimized. Mm-hmm. And then, then you just have the matter too of the first time through for Valdez and, the back of the first time through the second time through for Valdez, where they just couldn't lay off that breaking ball in the dirt, was reminiscent of the White Sox struggles against McCullers. Early on, in a couple games, they've had just some ruts of innings where they aren't able to get a bead on a good breaking ball, which limits the amount of batted balls that they have to play with later in the game. And then just so happens that when they do come up with those hits, the Astros are standing right there. And it's a case where, I know there's, the Astros reputation for, clean play, we'll say, integrity is, they'll need a couple decades, I think, and maybe ownership change and whatever to overcome that. But when it comes to defensive alignments. Yeah, you can't cheat your way into that. That's just, preparation meeting, or like good luck as the residue of design. And that's a case where they seem to be designed pretty well. And maybe the White Sox are just more, when they have to do damage, they're more predictable than maybe the Astros are in the way they do damage.
Yeah, taking a look at the White Sox box score in game 2, Tim Anderson had 3 hits. Luis Robert had 3 hits. We're going to talk about him in a moment. Jose Abreu had another multi-hit game and picked up another RBI. Yasmani Grandal had a sacrifice fly for an RBI. Eloy Jimenez was 1 for 4. He had an RBI. That came with the bases loaded as he grounded out. Up the middle was a nice play by Jose Altuve to stop from that being a 2-run single, and kept it to a 1-0 lead for the White Sox in the first inning. Andrew Vaughn picked up his first postseason hit of his career, and Lurie Garcia went 1 for 4, and Adam Engel went 0 for 2 with a strikeout. And I don't know what the White Sox are going to do in right field moving forward, as Adam Engel's not doing too much offensively right now for the White Sox. But all right, so everything we've been talking about is super dour at the moment. Let's try to be positive here, because again, the White Sox, Tim Anderson's right. They can win 3 straight games, and they can win in 5, prove Jim right, and make him look really smart to pick the White Sox in 5 games and go to the American League Championship Series. And if they do that, a big reason will be Luis Robert. Luis Robert has been awesome in these first 2 games for the White Sox. I think technically the Astros have only gotten Robert out once, as he reached on an error in game 1, which technically counts as an out in the box score. But even with his out, Robert moved the runners from first to second and third. So it was like a productive out. And he has just been tremendous. And I know that he hasn't hit for any extra base hits because nobody has. But Luis Robert, Jim, man, he has been an offensive catalyst for the White Sox. He's constantly on base.
He's having the kind of full season, I think, when we were thinking about Robert last year and how he had a great August, terrible September, had moments in October, only 3 games, but seemed to be climbing his way out of it and had momentum for next year. And then he has the injury that costs him 3 months. And we're thinking like, oh, so much for his progress. Like we thought, he was looking great in April, and we think, okay, there's going to be a reckoning at some point. And now you're going to have that injury forcing that reckoning, and it's never happened. And he's looking under control, and he's lifting the ball regularly. I think that's like the case where, when you're trying to figure out like the flaws of the White Sox, one is that they're over aggressive or that they don't draw walks. Robert doesn't really draw walks yet. That's where like the Mike Trout talk falls flat. And I wish they wouldn't mention him just because he's hard to get out, but Robert is getting there. I mean, he'll draw more walks as he keeps hitting like this and keeps proving that you can't get him out or just in the strike zone anymore. You have to go outside the strike zone. He'll draw more walks that way, but he's not there yet. Sometimes that exacerbates some team-wide issues, but he's making good contact. He's lifting the ball. He's somebody who's not a threat to ground into double plays, really. So that's a nice player to build around. Like I think as the White Sox go in the offseason, and we'll hold off on the greater discussion yet because we're going to have, we could be approaching that conversation within the next week or so about offseason plan projects and whatnot. But the White Sox have some decisions to make on similar players at the corner outfield and first base and such. Like they're going to figure out how to diversify the roster a little bit to help them be harder to game plan around. But Robert is not one of those players. I feared that he might be. I feared that he might be like a 250 hitter who struggles to get his OBP over 300, hits for power, plays defense. But I just thought, he's going to contribute to the flaws of the offense in a way that needs to be accounted for. And right now, facing the, one of the best pitching staffs and well-managed pitching staffs in baseball under the brightest lights, he's still having very composed at bats and doing damage on strikes. So he's showing everything you want to see so far that's still very much within the shape of player he is. Like he's not doing anything un-Luis Robert. Like he's just being the very best Luis Robert he can be. And that's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, it's not like the highlights that a Randy Rosarena, right, from game one. A Rosarena hit that monster home run, and then later in the game, a Rosarena stole home plate against the Boston Red Sox because the pitcher's not even paying attention to Rosarena at third base. But Robert is, even when he is hitting into outs, that he's forcing the issue enough with his speed down first base to draw a throwing error to reach, and he got hit by a pitch early in this series and had me holding my breath hoping that he's okay and he's not injured. But it's right now, if the White Sox need a big hit in this series, if they need a big hit to win game 3, it's not Jose Abreu or Yasmani Grandal or Tim Anderson or Eloy Jimenez I want at the plate. I want Luis Robert, because Robert has got the hot bat right now, and he's putting the ball in play consistently, and he's smacking the ball really hard as well. He's been tremendous so far in these first 2 games for the White Sox, and if you're looking for, a silver lining or a bright spot to be happy as a White Sox fan, Luis Robert has been awesome in the first 2 games. I do have to say Yasmani Grandal needs to make an adjustment for game 3. The Houston Astros are not afraid of Grandal. They are attacking him, Jim. They're not messing around. They'll flip a curveball for strike 1. Grandal doesn't want anything to do with it because it's spin, and then they'll pound him with a fastball on the second pitch, thinking that the pitch is going to be away and they're going to stay away from Grandal. He needs to be more aggressive early in the count because Houston's not playing around with Grandal.
Well, the last at bat was quality, though.
It was.
Yeah, so
Tucker made a great play.
Yep. So it's, it is a case where, he needs to resume that aggression he's shown during this really hot stretch. Like, he's been assertive earlier in at bats, and that could be a case where, when you have so many ugly plate appearances around you, especially when they get into the fits that they had against McCullers and then against Valdez for that little stretch, like, he probably wants to be a bastion of discipline and control. But perhaps that's something that can be used against him, like you said. But, the last swing that he had was good. And it's the at-bat you want to have. It's just a case where, just batting average on balls in play was not on the White Sox side. And, that's the case where, as we talked about before, just, when, if the Astros are going to be better at beating BABIP than other teams are, then perhaps, just everything else needs to be tightened up. Defense, managing, talent, deployment, everything like that.
Yeah, right now, after the first 2 games, the Astros bats are too much for the White Sox pitchers. So it's time for the White Sox offense. They're going to have to step up. They're just going to have to step up. I'm thinking they're going to have to score like 6 or 7 runs on Sunday to keep the season alive. Like, there's no choice. You're facing a rookie pitcher in Luis Garcia, who threw really well against the White Sox, but that was at home. And now he's going to be the rookie on the mound in front of a frenzy crowd at Guarantee Rate Field on Sunday. The White Sox offense needs to punish him, and they need to punish him early, and they need to make it a laugher early so they can at least get 1 win, because now you are definitely going game by game. And we talked about this yesterday. Inning by inning. Yeah. We talked about this yesterday. Was game 2 a must win? And, it was an 8.5 on a 10-point scale. Well, now every game is a must win. Every game is a 10 on the 10-point scale of must win. So that's the position that the White Sox are at. And this is going to be the common question throughout Chicago media, on the radio and in the print and on the web. Game 3, is it going to be a party or a funeral? Because everyone's going to be wearing black and it's going to be a blackout. How are you feeling about game 3? As we'll preview this on Twitter Spaces Sunday afternoon, and Saturday we're taking the day off. But how are you feeling about game 3, Jim?
I feel like there should be more life. And one of the tough things about the White Sox being down 0-2 is that before the game, you could see them like dancing and cheering during batting practice and such. And you might see like the comments saying like, what do you have to smile about? And sure looks like a relaxed team for, who's, once the game starts, just start crapping the bed. But they need to be who they are. Like they can't be like, I guess you don't want them to be tighter. You don't want them to be more nervous. So they have to, get it out somehow. But when it comes to like just the atmosphere, I think fans, in the crowd, and I think there will be because you pay a lot of money. You don't want to show up to not have a fun time before the Astros or White Sox defense or what have you makes it not fun. But I'm hoping that, the White Sox fans show up like it's 0-0. Like they try to set the circumstance out of their mind. They haven't got a chance yet to have postseason fun. So I hope that they come out looking to enjoy themselves and think that the White Sox can make it enjoyable. And you hope that the White Sox live up to that themselves and give them something to cheer about, and fuel that, to kind of bounce off each other. I think it has the capability of being a wild game, like the kind of just a slobber knocker type, 8-6 type score, double digits perhaps, just because we have seen from the first two games with Dusty using Presley and Graveman twice that he might not be all that convinced about his bullpen, or at least trying to work things out. So if the White Sox can get in that bullpen faster, perhaps they could just have some wild, crooked numbers going back and forth. I think it's going to be that kind of game, and I hope fans are, up for it, both health-wise and energy-wise, because, you pay a lot of money for postseason tickets, so you may as well try to make your own fun.
I did see a comment on Twitter, hey, party or Irish wake. Either way, there's going to be lots of drinking. So I thought that was pretty humorous. And we'll see. We'll see in what happens for the White Sox in Game 3 of the American League Division Series. Jim and I will be recapping that on Sox Machine Live after Sunday night's game between the White Sox and the Houston Astros. So again, tomorrow we have the day off. As far as any type of broadcasting, we will have the Twitter space starting on Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time to preview Game 3. That will last just an hour to give everyone an opportunity to get to the stadium and get to their seats for Game 3 of the American League Divisional Series. I do have to say, as we wrap up this edition of Sox Machine Live, and thank you everyone for jumping in and watching the live stream on youtube.com/Sox Machine. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at Sox Machine. But if you are an Instagram user, we have an Instagram at Sox Machine. And definitely follow us because I'll be taking pictures and videos of Game 3 at Guarantee Rate Field to try to capture as far as the big moments and the atmosphere at Guarantee Rate Field for the first postseason home game for the Chicago White Sox since 2008. So again, if you're an Instagram user, follow us there at Sox Machine. If you just discovered the Sox Machine podcast and Sox Machine Live, you can subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Sox Machine. And if you don't get an opportunity to watch the live stream of Sox Machine Live, we always take the audio recording of the show and upload it into the podcast feed, which you can subscribe to the Sox Machine podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you would like more from us, go to patreon.com/Sox Machine to sign up as our Patreon supporters get exclusive content. They get ad-free versions of both the podcast and the website, and they get the first opportunity of getting our new Sox Machine swag, like the Sox Machine ball caps Jim and I are wearing, and the Sox Machine pint glasses as well. We have plans starting at $2 a month, and we also do have annual plans too that save you 9% from the monthly plans, and you can sign up at patreon.com/Sox Machine. Sox Machine Live is a production of SoxMachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching and listening.